The restaurant was the kind of place where silence carried weight. Crystal glasses caught the warm amber light. Soft piano music floated through the air, barely touching the conversations of people who never worried about prices. Outside, the city pressed its cold palms against the glass, neon lights flickering like tired eyes that refused to close. Ethan Cole sat alone at a corner table. He always sat alone. The CEO of a billion-dollar technology firm, he had everything people chased: power, wealth, respect, but none of the things that followed him home. His phone buzzed endlessly with messages he didn't read. His calendar was packed weeks in advance, yet every night ended the same way: silence. He loosened his tie and stared at his untouched plate. Food had become fuel, nothing more. Since his wife died 6 years ago, the world had lost its flavor. People told him time healed everything. They were wrong. Time didn't heal. It only taught you how to live with the ache. That night, the ache felt heavier. The door opened, and a rush of cold air swept into the restaurant. Heads turned. Not because someone important had arrived, but because someone didn't belong. A man stepped inside, thin jacket zipped too high, shoulders hunched against the world. Beside him walked a woman holding a small boy's hand. The boy couldn't have been more than 6. His shoes were worn, his coat too big, sleeves hanging past his fingers. The hostess hesitated. Ethan watched the exchange from across the room. He recognized the look immediately, the polite discomfort, the unspoken question of whether to ask them to leave. "They'll order water and leave," someone whispered nearby. The man spoke quietly, his voice barely audible. The hostess glanced toward the manager. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't know why this bothered him so much. Maybe because he'd once promised himself that money would never make him blind. Or maybe because the boy was staring at the chandelier above, eyes wide with wonder, as if this place were a palace from a fairy tale. After a tense moment, the hostess nodded and led them to a small table near the back. Relief flickered across the man's face. They sat down carefully, as if afraid of breaking something just by being there. Ethan tried to look away. He failed. The boy climbed onto his chair and whispered something to his mother. She smiled sadly and brushed his hair back. The man, his father, Ethan assumed, picked up the menu, then quickly put it down, confusion written all over his face. Prices like these weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be ignored. Minutes passed. A waiter approached their table. Ethan couldn't hear what was said, but he saw the father's shoulders slump. The waiter nodded and walked away. When the food came, it was small. 1 plate, 3 forks. Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered splitting meals once. A lifetime ago. Before success, before ambition swallowed everything else. Before he lost the only person who ever loved him for who he was, not what he owned. Without thinking, Ethan stood. The waiter nearly collided with him. "Sir." Ethan reached into his wallet and pulled out his black card. "That table in the back. Put their entire dinner on my bill. And add dessert. Whatever they want." The waiter blinked. "Of course, sir." Ethan returned to his seat, heart pounding like he'd done something dangerous. He told himself it was just a meal. Just money. Nothing that would change anything. But when the father realized what had happened, everything changed. The man stood abruptly and walked toward Ethan's table, eyes wide, hands shaking. "Sir," he said, voice breaking. I don't know how to thank you. We didn't ask." "It's fine," Ethan interrupted quickly. "Please, sit. Enjoy your meal." The man swallowed hard. "You don't understand. We haven't eaten like this I don't even remember." Ethan nodded, unable to speak. The man returned to his family, wiping his eyes. The mother covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. The boy clapped his hands softly, like he was afraid to make too much noise. For the first time that evening, Ethan smiled. They ate slowly, savoring every bite. The boy laughed when the dessert arrived, a slice of chocolate cake with a candle the waiter insisted on lighting. "It's not my birthday," the boy said. "It's someone's," the waiter replied kindly. The boy beamed. When the family finished, they stood to leave. The father nodded toward Ethan again, gratitude etched into every line of his face. The mother mouthed, "Thank you." The boy lingered. He walked toward Ethan's table, small steps echoing on the marble floor. Ethan felt something twist inside his chest as the child stopped in front of him. The boy didn't speak. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, and placed it gently on Ethan's table. Then he ran back to his parents, and the door closed behind them, letting the cold night rush in once more. Ethan stared at the object. It was a folded piece of paper. His fingers trembled as he picked it up. Slowly, carefully, he unfolded it. Inside was a crayon drawing. A picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. Above them, a much taller figure stood, smiling. The tallest one had a square shape on his chest, colored black. A credit card. At the top, written in uneven letters, were the words, "Thank you for seeing us." Ethan froze. The restaurant disappeared. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, the music, all of it faded. Seeing us. Not helping us. Not feeding us. Seeing us. His throat burned. Tears blurred his vision as memories he'd buried deep clawed their way back to the surface. He was 8 years old again, standing in a grocery store with his mother, watching the cashier shake her head as she slid items back across the counter. He remembered the way people looked through them, not at them. Invisible. Ethan pressed the drawing to his chest. He hadn't just bought dinner. He'd acknowledged their existence. For the first time in years, he felt something crack open inside him. Not pain. Not grief. Purpose. That night, Ethan went home and couldn't sleep. The drawing sat on his nightstand, illuminated by the soft glow of a lamp. He stared at it until dawn. The next morning, he made a call that shocked his board of directors. He funded a new initiative: housing, job training, food security. Not as a PR stunt. Not as a tax write-off. But as a promise. He visited shelters. He listened. Really listened. Months later, at a community center opening funded by his company, a familiar face stopped him in his tracks. The same boy stood there, cleaner now, healthier. His parents stood beside him, no longer hunched, no longer afraid. "Sir," the boy shouted, running toward him. Ethan knelt as the child wrapped his arms around his neck. "We're not homeless anymore," the boy announced proudly. The father stepped forward. "Because someone believed we mattered." Ethan smiled, tears threatening again. "You always did." That night, Ethan returned to the same restaurant. He sat at the same table. But this time, he wasn't alone. The drawing still lived in his wallet, creased and faded, but priceless. A reminder that sometimes, the smallest gesture, the cost of one dinner, the act of truly seeing someone, can change more than a single night. It can change a life, including your own.